Imagine sitting in a room filled with people who are supposed to love you, people who are supposed to protect you, only to realize in one horrifying moment that they are the very ones holding the knife. That is exactly what happened to me, and it is a feeling I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, let alone my own family. We often hear about the wicked stepmother or the evil mother-in-law, but sometimes the betrayal comes from the very source you thought was your foundation. My name is not important, but my daughter's name is Isabella, and this is the story of how my parents stole her inheritance to build a swimming pool and the legal and emotional war that followed. It is a story about the cost of justice, the price of betrayal, and the painful realization that sometimes blood isn't thicker than water. It's just easier to spill. It was Isabella's 11th birthday. The air was thick with the smell of candles and cheap frosting, a scent that usually signifies pure joy. We were at my parents' house, a place that had once been a sanctuary of childhood memories for me, and hopefully for Isabella too. It was supposed to be a small, intimate celebration, just the core unit. My parents, my sister Jennifer and her 2 kids, and me with Isabella, the guest of honor. Looking back now, the normalcy of it all feels like a trap. The way the sunlight filtered through the lace curtains, the sound of wrapping paper being crumpled. It was all a stage set for a devastation I never saw coming. 6 months prior, the family had suffered a significant loss. My mother-in-law, Isabella's grandmother Rose, had passed away. Rose was a formidable woman, elegant in a way that modern times seem to have forgotten, possessing a quiet strength that Isabella adored. Before she slipped away, Rose had pulled me close in her hospital bed, her grip surprisingly firm for someone so frail. She pressed a velvet box into my hand. Inside lay a diamond necklace, a stunning vintage piece that sparkled with the fire of 100 years. It wasn't just jewelry, it was history. It was worth approximately $40,000, a staggering sum for a piece of wearable art, but to Rose, the value was in the legacy. She had looked me dead in the eye, her voice a hoarse whisper. "This is for Isabella. Give it to her when she turns 16. It is her inheritance from us. Keep it safe." It was a sacred trust, a dying wish. I had nodded, fighting back tears, promising her that I would guard it with my life. I hadn't told many people about it. I didn't want the complication of greed or questions. I had told my parents, though. I thought, in my naivety, that they should know. I thought that if something happened to me, if I was in an accident or fell ill, someone else needed to know that the necklace belonged to Isabella. It was in a safe deposit box at the bank, secure and hidden. Or so I thought. I had trusted them with the knowledge, and by extension, I had trusted them with the access, believing that family honor would be enough to protect a child's future. Back at the party, Isabella was in her element. She was opening gifts with the sort of rapturous delight only an 11-year-old can muster. Clothes, books, a new bike. Her smile was wide, genuine. She was happy, she was safe, or so I believed. Then the atmosphere in the room shifted. It was subtle at first, a glance between my mother and father, a clearing of a throat, a sudden stiffness in the posture of my sister, Jennifer. My mother stood up. She didn't look guilty. She looked resolved. She looked like a judge delivering a verdict. "We have something to tell you," she announced, her voice cutting through the cheerful chatter. The room fell silent. Even the kids stopped rustling paper. "Okay," I said, my smile faltering slightly. I assumed it was news about a vacation, or maybe something to do with the house. I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He cleared his throat, staring at a spot on the wall just above my head. "We needed to make a decision," he said, his voice heavy with a manufactured gravitas. "For the family." I felt it before I understood it. That cold, sinking sensation in the pit of my stomach, the biological warning system that screams danger before the brain can process the data. "What kind of decision?" I asked. My voice sounded thin in my own ears. My mother took over, her tone matter-of-fact, as if she were discussing the grocery list. "Jennifer's kids needed a pool, for therapy, for exercise. The doctor recommended it." The disconnect was jarring. A pool. I looked at Jennifer. Her kids were tearing around the room, hyperactive and perfectly healthy. There were no medical issues I knew of, no therapeutic needs that required a $40,000 aquatic facility. "A pool," I repeated, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. "Yes," my father chimed in. "It's expensive. We didn't have the money, so we used Isabella's necklace. The room seemed to tilt. The blood rushed to my ears, a roaring sound that drowned out the hum of the refrigerator. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline, waiting for the just kidding. It didn't come. The silence stretched, agonizing and thick. "You did what?" I asked, the whisper barely escaping my throat. "We sold the necklace," my mother said, her eyes meeting mine defiantly. "Got a good price, 42,000, enough to build a nice pool." It felt like a physical blow. "That wasn't yours to sell," I said. My voice was shaking now, the shock giving way to a rising tide of fury. "It was in our safe," my father said, his defensive instinct kicking in. "We had access. We made a decision." "You had access because I trusted you," the words tore out of me. "I said that necklace belonged to Isabella. Her grandmother left it to her. She's 11. My mother waved a hand dismissively. "She doesn't need a diamond necklace. Jennifer's kids need a pool for therapy." I turned to my sister, desperate for an ally or at least an explanation. "What therapy?" Jennifer shifted in her seat, avoiding my gaze. "Well, not therapy exactly," she mumbled. "But it's good for them, keeps them active, healthy." "So, you stole from my daughter to build your kids a pool," I stated, the reality crystallizing into a sharp, ugly truth. "We didn't steal," my father insisted, his voice rising. "We made a family decision. The necklace was just sitting in a box. Now it's being used for something practical." I looked at Isabella. She had stopped smiling. She wasn't crying, she wasn't screaming. She was just frozen, staring down at her plate of half-eaten cake. The joy of her birthday had been obliterated, replaced by a harsh lesson in adult cruelty. "That was mine," she asked quietly, her voice small in the large room. "Yes," I said, my heart breaking for her. "From Grandma Rose. She wanted you to have it when you turned 16. "But they sold it," she asked, looking up at her grandparents. "Yes." I said I wouldn't lie to her, not about this. Isabella nodded slowly. "Okay." "Okay," my mother smiled, a relieved, patronizing smile. "See, she understands. She's mature enough to know that family comes first." I stood up. The anger was no longer a wave. It was a volcanic eruption, cold and precise. "Family does come first," I said. "That's why you shouldn't have stolen from her." "We didn't steal," my mother repeated, her patience wearing thin. "We redistributed family resources." "You sold a $42,000 necklace that didn't belong to you," I said. "That's theft." "Don't be dramatic," my father snapped. "Come on, sit down." "We're leaving," I said. I grabbed Isabella's hand, her fingers cold and limp in mine. We left the house where I grew up, leaving behind the cake, the candles, and the illusion of a loving family. The drive home was suffocatingly quiet. Isabella stared out the window, watching the trees blur past. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream, to cry, to turn around and burn their house down. But I couldn't. I was a mother, and my daughter was sitting next to me, processing a trauma that no child should have to endure. When we got inside, she went straight to her room. I followed, hovering in the doorway like a ghost. I knocked gently. "Can I come in?" "Yeah," she said. She was sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. Her posture was slump-shouldered, defeated. I sat beside her. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I am so sorry." "It's okay," Isabella whispered. "It's not okay," I said fiercely. "That necklace was yours. Grandma Rose saved it for you, and they had no right to sell it. They had no right to touch it." "I know," Isabella said, her voice hollow. "But it's gone now, so it doesn't matter." "It does matter," I said. I could feel the resolve hardening in my chest like concrete. "And I'm going to fix it." I called a lawyer the next morning. I didn't call a mediator. I didn't call a therapist. I called a man who understood the language of consequences. I sat in his office, my hands clenched in my lap, and explained the situation. The theft, the betrayal, the victim. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Henderson, listened intently. "Do you have documentation that the necklace was meant for Isabella?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Rose's will mentions it. She left specific instructions that it should go to Isabella. It was a specific bequest. And your parents sold it without your permission. Yes, it was in their safe. I'd asked them to hold it because I wanted a neutral location. They sold it and used the money for my sister's pool. Mr. Henderson leaned back, a grim smile touching his lips. That's conversion, he said. Theft of property, you can sue for the value of the necklace. I want more than that, I said. I want the necklace back. That's harder, he admitted. If it's been sold, tracking it down could be difficult. If it went to a pawn shop or a general jeweler, it might be gone forever. Then we track it down, I said. I am not letting them get away with this. They think they can bully us because they are family. They think family is a magic word that excuses crime. We filed a lawsuit. We demanded the return of the necklace or restitution for its full value, plus damages, plus legal fees. We weren't asking for favors, we were demanding justice. My parents were served papers a week later. The reaction was immediate and explosive. My phone rang off the hook. When I finally answered, my father's voice was apoplectic. You're suing us, he shouted. You are suing your own parents. Yes, I said calmly. You stole from Isabella. I'm getting her property back. We didn't steal, my mother screamed in the background. We made a family decision. A decision without consulting me, I said. Without asking Isabella. You took something that wasn't yours and sold it. That's theft. In what world is it okay to steal from a child? We're your parents, my father roared. You can't sue us, we raised you. Watch me, I said, and I hung up. The case took 4 months. 4 months of discovery, motions, and endless legal wrangling. 4 months of my family trying to portray me as the villain, the ungrateful daughter who valued a shiny rock over her sister's children. But the law doesn't care about family politics. The law cares about property rights and intent. During discovery, the breakthrough happened. We found out who bought the necklace. It hadn't gone to a random buyer. It had been sold to a private collector, a man who appreciated vintage jewelry. My lawyer contacted him, explaining the situation. He explained that the necklace was stolen property, sold without the owner's consent. The collector was sympathetic, which was a miracle in itself. He agreed to return it, but with a condition. He had to be reimbursed for what he paid. $42,000. We went to court. The judge listened to the facts. He looked at the will. He looked at the admission of my parents that they sold it. He didn't hesitate. He ordered my parents to pay the $42,000 to the collector to secure the necklace's return, and he ordered them to pay my legal fees. They didn't have that kind of money. They were retired. They lived on a fixed income. To pay the debt they owed, because make no mistake, this was a debt of their own making, they had to take out a loan. A massive, burdensome loan against their own home. Jennifer, my sister, offered to help. She suddenly felt the weight of the pool she had so eagerly accepted. She said she'd contribute from the pool budget. But my mother, in a final act of stubborn pride, refused. This is our problem, not yours, she told Jennifer. She wanted to control the narrative, even as the walls crumbled around her. The necklace was returned. I remember holding the velvet box in my hand, the weight of it familiar and grounding. I drove straight to the bank. I went into the vault and placed the necklace back into the safe deposit box. But this time, I changed the access list. Only my name was on it, no one else. Not my parents, not my sister, not a soul who could betray that trust again. Isabella asked about it once. Did you get it back? Yes, I said. I got it back. Can I see it? I took her to the bank. We walked into the sterile, silent vault together. I opened the box. The diamonds caught the fluorescent light, throwing tiny rainbows against the metal walls. Isabella looked at it for a long time. She didn't reach for it greedily. She just looked. It's beautiful, she whispered. It is, I said. Grandma Rose wanted you to have it. When I'm 16, she asked. Yes, I said, but it's yours now. It's always been yours. Isabella reached out and touched the gems gently with one finger. Can we put it back in the box? Of course, I said. I don't need to wear it yet, Isabella said. Her voice was steady. I just needed to know it was mine. It is, I promised her. and no one can take it again. My parents haven't spoken to me since the lawsuit. They play the victims in their narrative, telling anyone who will listen about their ungrateful daughter who sued them over a misunderstanding. My sister tried to play the mediator once, calling me to tell me I was being unreasonable. Family should forgive, she insisted. They should apologize, I countered. They did what they thought was right, she argued. They did what was convenient, I said, and they didn't care that it hurt Isabella. She's a kid. She'll get over it, Jennifer said, echoing the same dismissal my mother had used. She shouldn't have to, I said. It has been 2 years now. Isabella is 13. She is taller, quieter in some ways, but stronger. She knows the necklace is in the safe deposit box. She knows it's hers. She knows I fought for her, that I stood in the gap between her and the people who tried to diminish her worth. And she knows that her grandparents chose a pool over her inheritance. She doesn't ask to see them. She doesn't mention them. When friends talk about their grandparents, or when school forms ask for emergency contacts, she simply checks the boxes that apply to her reality. When people ask about her grandparents, she says, "I don't have any." It's not true, technically. They are still alive, still living in the house with the nice pool that my sister's kids swim in all summer. But it is true emotionally. The grandparents she knew, the ones who were supposed to protect her, turned out to be the ones she needed protection from. So I don't correct her. I let her define her own family. Last month, the silence was broken. My mother sent a letter. It wasn't an apology. It was a demand wrapped in pleasantries. She said she wanted to reconcile. She said enough time had passed. She said Isabella should forgive and move on. I read it twice, searching for the words "I'm sorry." I looked for "we were wrong." I looked for "we shouldn't have done that." There was none of it, not one word of apology, not one acknowledgement of the theft, the betrayal, or the pain they caused. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say to a woman who felt entitled to my daughter's forgiveness without earning it. Isabella saw the envelope on the counter. She recognized the handwriting. "That's from Grandma," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said. "What does it say?" "She wants to see you," I said. I believe in honesty with my daughter, perhaps to a fault, but I will not sugarcoat the reality of who these people are. "Did she say sorry?" Isabella asked. She looked at me with those clear, discerning eyes that see right through pretense. "No," I said, "she didn't." "Then I don't want to see her," Isabella said simply. "Okay," I said, "that's your choice." "Good," Isabella said. She turned back to her homework, dismissing the woman who had once been her hero. Because if someone takes something from you and doesn't say sorry, they're not really sorry. They're just mad they got caught. I stared at my daughter, amazed at her resilience and her wisdom. "That's very wise," I said. "Grandma Rose would have said that," Isabella replied. "Yes," I said, feeling the ghost of that strong woman smiling down on us. "She would have." So I ask you, the listeners of this story, did I do the right thing? Should I have let it go to keep the peace? Should I have allowed my parents to redistribute my daughter's legacy because they felt they had the right? Or was standing up, filing the lawsuit, and showing my daughter that she matters more than their convenience the only choice a parent could make? I know what I think. I see the result in my daughter's confidence, in her knowledge that she is worthy of protection. But I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, if it sparked a fire in you or gave you a sense of satisfaction, please subscribe to Sleep Revenge for more. Smash that like button, turn on notifications so you never miss a story of justice served, and tell us in the comments, what is the most satisfying revenge you have ever witnessed? I'll see you in the next video.